So Dalia, this is our last conversation that we're going to have before the lecture itself, but I want to ask you one more question. Of course, I've got many more. In our first conversation, you talked about the failure of science to speak to certain aspects of ourselves, that science speaks really effectively to our intellectual self. And in the second conversation, you talked about how art opens up different ways of seeing. I'm interested in what are the parts of ourselves that art speaks to, and why is that conversation between art and these parts of ourselves important in terms of catalysing action in relation to climate change?
So art speaks to our imagination and it speaks to our feeling. And a lot of art, in particular, you could say landscape painting, as I mentioned in our last conversation, but also writing, has the potential to transplant us. We're suddenly in an entirely new place. And we smell things that we'd never smelled before. We're seeing the Southern Cross, for instance, that we might have never seen before. You're experiencing the natural world through art in a fully embodied way. And I think for this reason, art has the potential to unify our intellectual and our, say, visceral, emotional, and imaginative side, because it's speaking to us as human beings who can know, who can discern, who can think, but also speaking to us as embodied beings who smell, who touch, who hear, and who are going to be deeply affected by the natural world, who are deeply affected by the natural world. Our experience of nature is mediated by feeling. There's pleasure in being in nature, and there's also displeasure. And those are things that art can really capture, and therefore give us a better sense of where we stand in relation to nature, remind us that we are embodied beings who experience the natural world fully through our bodies or in our bodies.
And also who will experience climate catastrophe
Absolutely.
fully through our bodies.
Exactly.
Yeah, it strikes me as you're speaking also that we know from whether it's from Spinoza or from Damasio that there's also no action without feeling, right? That we tend to think that action comes from that intellect, but unless we have emotions, then we can't take action.
I think that's exactly right. And I think that it's for this reason that we need to have a place for art on the table. It's going to be inspiring us in a way that an intellectual discussion, I think, simply cannot.
And I think what's so important about you giving this lecture is that you're bringing art to the heart of academic work, a heart of environmental work, whether it's scientific or philosophical or social scientific. Not that art is something that happens after, but as you said, I think it was in the first talk, that art actually happens before we get to do the right type of science.
Totally. And I think this is why I've called the lecture Shallow versus Deep Collaboration, because I'm really interested in a deep collaboration between art and other disciplines, where art is at the heart of things. It's already helping us formulate our questions. If it's revealing to us nature in a new way, then that framework that it's offering is going to also determine the kinds of questions we're asking.
It sounds like your lecture is really agenda setting for the type of work that we need to be doing at the Sydney Environment Institute, so I'm really looking forward to it.
Thank you.